Gonzaga needed to beat Maryland by 13 points to ensure a spot in the Players Era Festival Championship, and they figured 39 points couldn't hurt.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Folks, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Well, Gonzaga dominated Maryland on Tuesday night in Las Vegas, setting up a championship matchup against Michigan. The Zags are going to be in the Players Era Festival Championship, a chance to take home some extra cash from this event and win themselves a little trophy. We're going to talk about the big-time win for Mark Few's team over Maryland. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, everything we saw in that game. And then we're going to turn our attention to Michigan. We're going to talk about what Michigan has done so far in the Players Era Festival. It's been a pretty dominant performance so far for the Wolverines. We'll talk about the rest of their season, which has not been nearly as dominant. And then we'll close out the show with our keys to victory. What does Gonzaga need to do to beat what will be unquestionably the toughest front court that the Zags have faced all season long? But before we get to that, let's talk about this 100-61, 39-point margin of victory for Mark Few and the Bulldogs on Tuesday night in Las Vegas. Again, they needed to win by 13. It became clear, and look, we could have a much longer conversation, and perhaps we will, about the unclear nature of this event in terms of who you're playing and when you're playing, and the fact that 14 hours before the tip-off of the first game in this event on Wednesday, neither of the teams that are playing in that game know that they are, and they're not going to have any time to prep for their opponent. It is a mess to have this event not just clearly bracketed the way that pretty much any other event in college basketball is, and we're seeing the negative effects of that at this point. But for Gonzaga, they put themselves in a position where they knew during their game, as long as we beat Maryland by 13 points, because we have the advantage in terms of total points scored over Tennessee, we will be one of the top two teams, and we will get a chance to compete for the championship. And they got it done. It was never really in question in the first half. There was a little bit of a sloppy stretch late in the first half where Maryland kind of got it back within 9, and then Gonzaga just absolutely blasted them in the second half. They're now going to play Michigan on Wednesday. They're now 7-0 on the season, and every single one of Gonzaga's wins has been by 10 or more points. 3 of those 7 wins have been by 39 or more points after this win against Maryland. The Zags have also now beat 2 teams in the SEC in Oklahoma and Alabama. They have beat a Big 12 team in Arizona State. They have beat a Big East team in Creighton, and now they have beat a Big 10 team in Maryland, and they will get a chance at another Big 10 team against Michigan. Really would have been nice if Maryland was in the ACC. I believe they used to be in the ACC. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but then Gonzaga would have wins by the end of November. To have a win over every Power 5 conference would be spectacular. Unfortunately, not the case. Gonzaga does not actually have any games scheduled against ACC opponents this season. So in order to collect all of the power conferences, Gonzaga will need to face an ACC team in the NCAA tournament, which is, of course, a distinct possibility. Zags are also now, as I'm recording this, #1 at KenPom. Could change, but I'm not sure that it will. Michigan moved up to #4, but if Gonzaga's ahead of Michigan right now, I think it'll stay that way at least until Wednesday night when those 2 teams square off. We'll talk about this game against Maryland. Gonzaga was outstanding from the perimeter. This was such a needed performance from Gonzaga from deep. They came into this game shooting 30-ish% from 3, a little higher than that. They had not made more than 9 threes in a single game this year, and they hit their 9th 3 in this game to close out the first half. Steele Venters, which he did it against Alabama, he did it again. This was a broken play where he just took a step back three, drilled it from the corner. 9 made threes for Gonzaga in the first half of this game. They finished with 14 made threes, 14 out of 33, 42%. And that 42% was with walk-on Noah Halan taking a couple of threes in the final in the final minute or two of this game. So really the percentage could have even been higher than that. Again, 7 total Zags made a three in this game. All 7 of those players made a three in the first half of this game. Steele Venters, after shooting it really well against Alabama, was even better in this one. 4 of 7 from 3 in this contest. Just an outstanding shooting performance from him. That is what he's on this roster to do. He plays well defensively. He hustles. He's a really hardworking player, good rebounder for his position, but his primary role on this squad is to knock down open threes, and he did that incredibly effectively both tonight against Maryland and on Monday against Alabama, and they'll need him to do it against Michigan. We will talk about that later in the show. Braden Smith made his only three-point attempt. Ike and Huff each made a three in this game as well. And the main player, though, from 3, but really just another huge positive for Gonzaga in this game. What a performance from Emmanuel Innocenti. Had never scored double figures in a Gonzaga uniform. He did so at Tarleton State, but had never done it at Gonzaga. Finishes this game with 15 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, and a steal in 18 minutes of action. Again, his first game in double figures, but also set his career high from 3. He made 5 threes. That's where all of his 15 points came from. 5 of 7 from 3 to be specific. His previous career high was 3. He had made 2 a bunch of times. He'd only made 3 threes in a game once, and that was at Tarleton State against Seattle U, actually. And so in this game, he hit his 4th three to break that record, and then hit a 5th one just for good measure. He did get a technical foul after his 3rd made 3 for blowing a kiss at the Maryland bench, which was an ill-advised thing to do, particularly because there was a referee standing right there. The camera angle made it look like he was blowing the kiss at the referee. I don't know what the Maryland bench said, but E-Man was hot. He was fired up on the bench after that. Mark Few was trying to calm him down, and he was like a little argumentative with Coach Few, which I've never seen him or very many players at all do that. And to Few's credit, he kind of let him cool off, and Michelson and Gentry were speaking to him. And then this was right at the end of the first half. The second half started. He subbed in pretty early after that, and clearly whatever issues they had were resolved. And I know Few obviously will be able to handle those kinds of situations, but it was not something you expect to see very often. But what a game from him. I mean, 15 points. Obviously, Maryland was not scheming to stop him from the perimeter, nor should they have been. But that's what makes this team so dang difficult, is that you don't know who's going to step up. You spend all this time trying to prevent Tyon Grant Foster, and you hold him to 6 points, and then the dude who's his backup off the bench hits 15. You spend all this time saying we have to pack in the paint and force them to beat us from the perimeter, and then Venters and Innocenti combined to make 10 threes when the entire team hadn't made 10 in the game prior to that. Just a ridiculous amount of talent and depth and versatility on this roster. I don't know how any coach game plans against them. Certainly a coach now in Dusty May at Michigan who's got less than 15 hours to do it before they match up in that game on Wednesday night. The Zags offense was just scorching hot all game long, not just from the perimeter. They had a stretch in the second half. There was 12 minutes and 59 seconds left. So it had been 7 minutes of game time. And that was when they missed their first shot of the half. They had not missed a single shot in the first 7 minutes of that. They finished this game 42% from 3. Obviously, that's fantastic. 12 of 15, so 80% from the free throw line. But folks, what really stood out, 23 of 31 on 2-point shots. That is 74%. I use the term scorching hot. I can't even think of another way to describe shooting 75% as a team on 2-pointers. That is just ludicrous levels of efficiency. Braden Huff was phenomenal, 20 points on 9 of 10 shooting in this one. Graham was great. Really, just about everybody on the offensive side of the ball was incredibly efficient in this game. Zags didn't get a ton of offensive rebounds because they did not need to get a ton of offensive rebounds because they were making 75% of the shots they took at the rim. Also, very strong performance from Braden Smith, really a strong performance from both of the point guards. But I wanted to highlight Smith because he comes off a game where he plays just 8 minutes against Alabama. Mario plays 4 times as many minutes as him. And a lot of players maybe would have struggled with that. And I know the personalities of these two guys, they're certainly not going to be bad blood or anything, but sometimes when you get another chance after not playing particularly well or seeing your playing time drop, you'll see players press or get, try to do too much. And Smith came into this game and immediately was very, very good. In the first half of this game, he had 4 points, 4 assists, 4 steals. He ended up finishing the game with 5 points, 5 steals, and I think 4 assists as well. 5, 5, and 5. 5 points, 5 assists, 5 steals. He had a pair of turnovers. He had a rebound. He was 2 of 3 from the field, including knocking down a three-pointer. Really strong performance from him. Again, Mario, the outside shot wasn't falling, but he had 9 assists in this game. Just an excellent performance. And that led to Gonzaga having 30 total assists in this game. 30 assists, 12 turnovers. The 30 assists is the only time Gonzaga's ever had 30 assists against a power conference opponent ever. In the history of the program, they have never done this. That was on 37 made field goals. Just an unbelievable amount of ball movement and taking care of the basketball and being unselfish with the rock led to so many open looks and them making them at an extremely high clip. The defense was great as well. Maryland shot 36% from the field, 24% from three. They had 18 turnovers. 12 of them were steals by Gonzaga. Just an unbelievable, incredibly well-rounded performance from the Zags. And again, my layout for these segments has always been, we're going to talk about the good, we're going to talk about the bad. I'm having a hard time coming up with the bad in either of these last two games. 12 turnovers isn't great. It's not a great number. It was a high possession game. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but there were some sloppy plays, just some, bad passes right to Maryland players, just a few of those things that against better teams, you can't make those kind of mistakes. You were able to get away with them in this one, but that is something you'd want to see them clean up. Fouling remains an issue. I thought the officiating was a little bit questionable in this game. They seemed to get mad at Tyon Grant-Foster for arguing a call, and then they called a flagrant foul on Graham Ike on the next possession. That was an incredibly soft flagrant foul. They then called a foul on Ismaila Diani on the ensuing possession, and then the next possession, Tyon got absolutely mugged going up for a lay-in, and they didn't call it, and the crowd started getting real antsy at that point. Again, I don't really know that the officiating was horrendous, but there were some stretches that were pretty ugly. Lots of fouls called on Gonzaga. In fact, in the first half of this game, Gonzaga took 2 free throw attempts. Maryland took 17, 15 more free throw attempts than Gonzaga. That ended up evening itself out in the second half, and actually, in fact, favored Gonzaga in the second half. But Gonzaga will need to clean up the fouls. Like, some of them were just stupid fouls, and they do need to work on that kind of, and again, that'll be a factor against Michigan. If the bigs are in foul trouble at all against the Wolverines, that could be curtains for the Zags. And that's kind of what I want to talk about now is getting ready for this game. And Michigan's number 7 ranked team in the country. They've had some not so great performances this year, but they've looked really good these first 2 days in Las Vegas. So we're going to talk about what this game means for both sides as they're playing for all the marbles and all the cash in the Players Era Championship. More on that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball and the NBA are back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the start of a game, or if you just want to ride out the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to predicting those fourth quarter comebacks. And you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay to get a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's the one making that late push. Don't have odds right now for Gonzaga, Michigan as I'm recording this, but I'll tell you what, Gonzaga has the third lowest odds to make the Final Four this year, plus 220. If you missed your chance to gamble on this earlier and you want to get on the action now, I'm not sure that those odds are going to get any better for you. The only teams with better odds right now are Purdue at plus 165 and Duke at plus 185. And folks, right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. Win your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is also brought to you by Doer, folks. I've always had issues finding jeans that are actually comfortable enough for me to wear, which is why I'm so excited to get my new pair from Doer. This local company has the most comfortable jeans, no matter what style you like, and for any occasion. You can wear them out to a quick trip to the grocery store, a night out with your friends, a trip to Las Vegas to watch some Gonzaga basketball, whatever it may be. Doer jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, and they're antibacterial, meaning your jeans stay fresh longer so you can wear more and wash less. Doer is also made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture to keep you cool and comfortable as the temperatures change. Doer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. In fact, they invented the original performance denim. So simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Go now to shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle and you'll get 15% off your first order. That's shopdoer, DUER.com/LockedOnSeattle for 15% off. Shopdoer.com/LockedOnSeattle. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast. Still listening on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are now getting you ready for Wednesday night's battle, the championship between Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs and Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan coming into this tournament ranked number 7 in the country. Gonzaga, of course, criminally underranked at number 12. That will change very much so, regardless of how this game goes. Both teams also going to get paid some additional money. As I'm recording this, I did not see exact dollar figures. I'm not sure if there are even exact dollar figures. My understanding is that the teams in this game and the third place game, which, by the way, is going to be Kansas versus Tennessee, those 4 teams will all get some piece of the pie, of the financial pie. I think it's an additional $1 million overall. So I would imagine the winning team will get like maybe $500K, and then the second place team gets $250K. The third and fourth place teams maybe get like 125 or split it some other way. That's just a guess. I'm not sure the exact financials on that. If we do get a number on that, we'll certainly talk about it in the post-game show after the Michigan game. But obviously, that's a huge bonus. You already got $1 million for participating in this event. Now you get potentially get at least some amount more guaranteed, and potentially as much as 250,000, maybe even $500,000 more that you can spend on your roster. And for a program like Gonzaga that is not at the $20.5 million limit that these schools have, like Michigan, they will probably have to put this money through the NIL collective and have that money be kind of evaluated as like additional NIL income along with the money that they already have. Whereas Gonzaga is not at that $20 million threshold. So this is just extra money that they get to spend on their roster. Really valuable for Gonzaga to have that in this game. Michigan beat San Diego State in their first game by 40 points. 40-point victory for Michigan over the Aztecs. They pretty much locked themselves into making the championship game as long as they beat Auburn in the second game. But for good measure, they beat Auburn by 30. 70-point margins of victory in these first 2 games for the Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to tell you right now, 40-point win in game 1, 30-point game in game 2, not going to be a 20-point win in game 3. I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing a Gonzaga victory, but they sure as heck are not going to lose by 20 to anybody this year, and it's not going to happen to Michigan. But man, Gonzaga's got a ton of momentum right now, but I don't think anybody can have more momentum than Michigan. Again, San Diego State has not looked good so far this year, but that was a team that had significant aspirations coming into the year and had some buzz as a ranked team, and Auburn was ranked when Michigan knocked them off here by 30. So this is a team that's rolling right now. One of 6 teams that went 2-0, Gonzaga and Michigan are 2 of them. The other 4 were Iowa State, Tennessee, Kansas. So sorry, there's 5 of them. And Tennessee and Kansas will play each other in the third and fourth place game, meaning that Iowa State just got absolutely shafted. I would be furious if I was an Iowa State fan, by the way, because they played Creighton and St. John's were the 2 games that they played, and they beat St. John's. They beat the 14th ranked team in the country. They beat a previously ranked Creighton team, and it was determined that their margin of victory was not good enough. Meanwhile, Kansas played at Notre Dame and Syracuse. I would be very upset if I was Iowa State and did not get a chance to compete for additional NIL money and a third place game when I went 2-0 and beat a ranked team when Kansas played 2 of the worst power conference teams in college basketball. This is an upsetting situation. Again, I got no stake in it. I don't care about the Cyclones, but man, I would not be happy if I was a fan of that team. Wolverines 6-0 on the year. Again, they were really good the first 2 days in Las Vegas, but they had not really been great prior to that. They needed overtime to beat Wake Forest, who then also turned around and played a really good game against Texas Tech. So I do think Wake Forest is a pretty good team, but that's not exactly I mean, Wake Forest should have won this basketball game. Like, there was many times when they should have been able to get a W here, and we'd be talking about this Michigan team a lot differently had that happened. Michigan also went on the road to play TCU and only won by 4. It's a true road game, so you give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt. But this TCU team lost to New Orleans, who's like Ken Pom 200 something on the first game of the season. So Michigan should not be playing around with a team like TCU. Again, recency matters, and Michigan is playing a heck of a lot better right now. But that Wake Forest game was the same day Gonzaga played Creighton, so it's not like it was that long ago. I mean, the whole season hasn't been that long, so certainly something to keep an eye on. Currently, as I'm recording this, they are Ken Pom 4th, while Gonzaga, of course, is now Ken Pom number 1. Michigan is 18th in adjusted offensive efficiency. They are 1st in adjusted defensive efficiency, and they are 35th in tempo. This is the best front court Gonzaga will face this season, almost assuredly. It's one of the best front courts in college basketball, unless Gonzaga faces Duke, which would certainly help with the ACC issue we talked about earlier. I don't think Gonzaga is going to face a better front court in college basketball. Michigan's is incredibly deep and incredibly talented up at the top. And it's going to be a fun test, because I also am not sure Michigan's facing a better front court than what they're going to face in Graham Ike and Braden Huff on Wednesday night. But Yaxel Lendeborg comes back to school. He was projected to be a first-round pick out of UAB, transfers to Michigan. He is a National Player of the Year candidate, averaging about 15.5 points, 7 boards, over 3 assists per game, shooting 38% from 3. He's a 6'9" forward who's going to play the 3 for them, and that's just a matchup nightmare. He is big, he's strong, he's a hub, he can do so many different things. Not a lot of 6'9" threes in college basketball. He's an issue for sure. They also have a 7'3" center. Not a lot of those in college basketball either. That would be Aday Mara, who spent the last couple of years at UCLA, has now transferred to Michigan, averaging 10 points, nearly 10 rebounds, over 3 blocks per game. Very efficient shooter, 64% from the field. 3 blocks per game. He is the best shot blocker Gonzaga will face, has faced this season when this game rolls around. Arguably the best shot blocker they will face all year long. Again, that's a challenge. Those two guys alone is a challenge. You also toss in Morez Johnson Jr., transfer from Illinois, averaging 13.5 points, second on the team, 7 rebounds as a 6'10" power forward. So you got 7'3", 6'10", 6'9", all starting 3 of the team's 4 leading scorers. This front court is a problem. It is an absolute issue. Michigan has a team shooting 63% on 2-pointers. That's very good. Here's the issue. They are also holding opponents to 35% from 2. That is ridiculous. Opposing teams against Michigan so far this season are shooting under 36% on 2-pointers. Gonzaga just shot 74% against Maryland on 2-pointers. Something has to give. Something has to give. And we're going to give our 5 keys to victory, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's pretty much that. It's pretty much that. Can Gonzaga find a way to be efficient and effective around the rim offensively, or will Michigan's incredibly long, versatile, talented defensive front court shut Gonzaga's bigs out scoring the basketball? Because if that happens, I'm not sure Gonzaga has a chance unless they have the greatest 3-point shooting game that they possibly can. That is a huge part of this game. However, Michigan's backcourt, not so good. Elliot Cadeau, transfer from North Carolina, good passer, lots of assists, also lots of turnovers. Known for being very, very turnover prone. He's also pretty small. Gonzaga is going to have a size advantage against this backcourt. Roddy Gale, decent player, 10.5 points, 1.5 steals per game, but also averages nearly as many turnovers as assists. Gonzaga will have an advantage in the backcourt. They will have an advantage with their guards and their wings, but that front court is going to be an issue. And that's what I want to talk about to close out the show. It should not scare Gonzaga away. They should not be tentative or fearful of attempting to score around the rim. In fact, it's the opposite. They need to go right at this team. We're going to talk about that, some other keys to a Zag victory coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball, it's back. Feast week is here. I could not be more excited. The rivalries, the energy, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets to these events, it can feel like more of a hassle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices that jump at checkout. And that's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices without any of those surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. And I pulled up Game Time just before here, and there's so many great deals for Gonzaga games. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it is less stressful than any other way that I have bought tickets. Looking ahead, Gonzaga UCLA, December 13th, Climate Pledge Arena, the battle in Seattle. You can get tickets at Game Time for $93 a piece. They also still have a super deal remaining. It's in Section 8, Row BB. Your feet are dang near on the floor, and you can get those tickets for $238. So, folks, take the guesswork out of buying tickets by using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags, and we're still getting you ready for Wednesday's battle with the Michigan Wolverines. Chance for Gonzaga to not only move to 8-0 on the year and pick up what would be their 5th win over a power conference team before Thanksgiving. Might have to ask my guy, Stephen Carr, if that has ever happened, because that sounds like something that hasn't happened much, if at all, in a Gonzaga uniform. But beyond that, not only a chance to go 8-0, but also a chance to take home some serious cash and a victory in the Players Era Championship. This thing is so not formatted like a tournament. It doesn't really feel like a tournament victory, but I'll tell you what, it may not feel the same as winning Maui or winning Atlantis, but I suspect that the hundreds of thousands of dollars going into the bank for Gonzaga will make up for that feeling quite nicely. Key number 1 for Gonzaga against Michigan on Wednesday night, pound the rock down low. I said it in the teaser, I'll say it here. Do not be afraid of Michigan's front court. Do not be afraid of the success that they have had defending bigs so far this season. You cannot alter your, and they're not going to be clear. Like, Mark Few's not going to go out and be like, well, we have to like play isolation basketball or run a bunch of elevator screens to get open threes and just ignore our bigs. Like, that would be insanity. They're not going to do that. But I think it's very important that Gonzaga comes into this game establishing themselves and saying, hey, I don't care what success they have had blocking shots, defending the rim. They haven't faced us. They haven't had to stop, Graham's little mid-range floater or Braden's incredibly left-handed floater, or the mid-range fadeaway that Graham does. They haven't had to try to stop that. And so you go out there and you play your game and you get the ball to Graham, you get the ball to Braden, you let them go to work. I suspect Michigan will not double team because they do not have to. So you try to score in isolation. And if you repeatedly get stopped and you're struggling, then you can make some adjustments. But best case is you score or you get them in foul trouble, or both. Both things happen. And the nice thing too is that you can pull Aday Mara, the 7'3" big man. You can pull him away from the rim because both Graham and Braden can space the floor. Like, Michigan cannot just leave those guys open from 3. So whoever, if they're assuming they're in man coverage, which they will be, whoever Aday Mara is guarding, play at the perimeter, pull him away from the rim. That opens up driving lanes for guys like Grant Foster and Miller and others to try to get to the cup. And if Mara is coming back down to try to block shots, kick it out to Braden, kick it out to Graham, try to hit those open threes. Key number 2, leads right into that perfectly. Got to stay hot from the 3-point line. It's going to be harder to score around the rim than it has been in any other game for Gonzaga this year. Granted, again, they just coming off a performance where they shot 74% on 2-pointers, so they haven't been challenged at the rim all that much this year. This will be a new situation for them, and a really strong way to mitigate that is to be consistent hitting the outside shots. They have not been this year until tonight, until Tuesday when they beat Maryland, hit those 14 threes. Got to do that again. Again, Michigan's holding opposing teams to 35.5% on 2s, but 32.5% from 3. That's pretty similar. And again, holding opponents to under 33% from 3 is still good for Michigan defensively, but it's far from elite. In fact, according to KenPom, it's actually pretty mediocre. It's like 170th in the country, whereas their 2-point defense is literally at the top. It's literally the best 2-point defense in college basketball. 3-point defense, pretty much right in the middle for college basketball. You need to hit the outside shots. You need, you don't need Emmanuel Innocenti hitting 5 threes again, but you kind of need Steele hitting 4 like he did the last 2 games. You'd love to have another 4 made threes from Steele Venters off the bench. You'd love to see Mario. He was 1 of 5 in that game against Maryland. You'd love to see him find that outside shot again. Braden Smith hit that 3 again. Adam Miller has been pretty inconsistent as a 3-point shooter so far this year. Would be really great to get him going, especially early in this game, assuming he stays in the starting lineup, to get him hitting some outside shots. Really critical for Gonzaga to stretch this Michigan defense and to just get points up on the board against a very strong offensive team. Key number 3 for Gonzaga is for the point guards to continue to play well. Talked about this in the beginning of the show. Braden Smith, really strong game, especially coming off of, playing just 8 minutes against Alabama to come in and immediately impact this game against Maryland was outstanding. Both of these guys played well in this game. You need both of them to play well here again against Michigan. This is not a great backcourt for the Wolverines. You have to take advantage of that. Gonzaga's point guards have to be better than Michigan's point guards, have to be better than Roddy Gale, have to be better than LJ Kaysen, have to be better than Elliot Cadeau. Like you have to be. And I think for them, it's a lot of not necessarily scoring a bunch, but it's taking care of the basketball. None of those unnecessary turnovers. There's a few times in this game where, Smith tried to force a pass to Graham Ike that wasn't there. I think he didn't see a defender coming over and they got an easy steal. You can't get away with very many of those against a team like Michigan. You got to take care of the ball. No stupid mistakes, no unnecessary turnovers, no trying to make passes that aren't there. And just staying within yourself. Michigan plays at a pretty fast tempo. They may try to speed Gonzaga up a little bit. We saw Alabama try to do that, and Mario is just so good at staying within himself and playing his game and not getting sped up. You need that again against Michigan. You need to not let them kind of, especially when you're tired, you're coming off 2 games in 2 days, like it'd be easy to kind of fall for that trap a little bit. And I think it's critical for Gonzaga's guards to play their pace and their tempo and dictate this game while taking care of the basketball. And then key number 4 is the flip of that. You got to force turnovers. And when you can, get out in transition. Get yourself some easy buckets at the rim. Michigan turns the ball over a good amount. This is a weakness for them. This is an area, this is where Wake Forest exposes them. This is where TCU exposed them as well. Force them to turn the ball over. Elliot Cadeau, again, former North Carolina Tar Heel, he is pretty inconsistent with the basketball. He's always been a high assist guy, but he turns the ball over a lot. And if Gonzaga is getting a ton of steals, every single game, it feels like they're getting 10, 12 different steals per game. That is critical in this game. If they're getting steals, they're getting live ball turnovers at the top of the key, opportunities to get out in transition, get easy points at the rim. Again, the best case scenario for Gonzaga is that they're scoring at the rim and Aday Mara has not crossed half court yet. Because if he's anywhere around the rim, his 7'3" frame is going to alter the shots. Even if he's not blocking every single one of them, he's going to make your life harder. It's harder to score when there's a 7'3" guy whose entire reason for being on the floor is to stop you from putting the ball in the hoop. If you are blasting past him because he was down at the rim and then Elliot Cadeau turned the ball over and you get a free lay-in, that's cash money. Like you need as many of those opportunities as you can get. And fortunately, again, that's been something Gonzaga has been very, very good at so far this season. And then last but not least, said this one early in the season, haven't said it in a couple of days, let Tyon Grant Foster cook, man. Let Tyon go. And again, this isn't even a coaching thing as much of like a Tyon just needs to go in there and mix it up and get some stuff going. He wasn't bad in the Maryland game. He had 6 points on 3 of 7 shooting. He was very active early in the game. I think he scored the first 5 points of the game for Gonzaga or something like that. But he was just kind of quiet for the rest of the game. But I think you let him go in this game. This feels like the kind of game where if Gonzaga wins this one, it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if Tyon has 15 or more points, because I think he's a matchup issue for Michigan. Michigan starts 3 really big guys, and then they start 2 kind of smaller guards. So they're either going to put a 6'9" kind of power forward type player like Yaxel Lendeborg on Tyon Grant Foster, or they're going to put Nimari Burnett, their starting 2 guard, who's like 6'5". Either way, I think Grant Foster's got an advantage. If they're putting Yaxel Lendeborg on him, Yaxel's a very good athlete at 6'9". I'm not saying he's incapable of like staying in front of or keeping Grant Foster in front of him, but I think if you're Grant Foster, you're driving into him and you're doing whatever you can to get fouls. And if he's doing a good job of staying upright and not committing fouls and you can't score, then you switch the strategy up. But I like the idea of, hey, their best player, a potential All-American, is guarding the guy on our team who's the best that we've arguably ever had at getting fouled. Let's try to take advantage of this. Like, let's see if we can make something happen where Lendeborg's getting 2 first-half fouls, has to sit on the bench, or has to play really tentatively on defense, and we can exploit that and we can take advantage of that. Or they're going to put a smaller guard on Tyon, and then you just let him go on the post and go to work, which we saw him do effectively those last couple of games as well. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Of course, a special shout out to those everydayers as well. We'll be back post-game after Gonzaga versus Michigan, recapping that game, getting you ready for the rest. I guess not the rest of the week because there won't be much going on, getting you ready for Thanksgiving. And then eventually, of course, getting you ready for that big-time game for Gonzaga against Kentucky in Nashville on December 5th. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Zags.